It's time for the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. I say that it's in about 3 days' time. There's plenty of time for us to go over our pick'ems and to figure out where we went right slash wrong in the elimination stage and where we can improve in the playoff stage. This is how I did in the elimination stage. I got top 28%. I think that my points would have been better if VP were able to get the win against G2. Very unfortunate situation across the board. I'm not really going to get into that too much right here. But James, all I'll say is the guy handled it like a complete and utter legend and definitely won a lot more fans as a result of his sort of response. Had if G2 have lost that game, I know a lot of people were banking pretty hard on Nico performing and Munacy, and that had they have lost that, I think I actually would have got up towards around top 20%. So that was a bit of a shame for my fantasy league, but overall did well. I'm always happy if all my players bag me more than 10 points each. As long as I see green here and at least 10 points, I know I've done a pretty decent job and I've managed to thread a half-decent team together. I think where most people were getting a lot of points is I saw a lot of people going for Donk and Shiro, and obviously they bagged crazy amounts of points for Spirit. But I'm overall pretty happy. I thought FaZe was going to let me down big time. Until the last couple of days, both of these guys were in the minuses. So glad that they eventually kind of turned it around and they got me some points in the end. So into the next stage, into the playoffs, we're going to move now. We know what the games are. Now, I'm going to keep it like pretty brief, this video, because I'm also going to be releasing a Pick'ems video where I'm going to go in depth on how the teams got to this point, how they performed, because it's going to allow me to explain my thought processes and who I'm going to pick to actually win the major and who I'm going to pick to get through. So I'm not going to go through that in here. My Pick'ems video will be around at the same sort of time, so you can check that out on my YouTube channel. I'll link it in the description box below as well in case you don't find it. So Cloud9 Vitality, Spirit and FaZe, Eternal Fire and RV, and Mouse and G2. And simply put, guys, I'm going for a huge risk here. During the celebrity leaderboard, during the major, the points are increased, so you have a higher chance to either close the gap or obviously get left behind, whichever case may be. I'm 11th out of 31 positions right now, and I've been stuck around 10 or 11 for the longest time. Even though I'm getting some decent teams, everyone around me is around the same. So I'm going to go for a huge risk and a huge gamble, and this could either let me catch up and get crazy high amounts of points, or it's going to get me absolutely nothing and I'm going to be left in the dust. So I'm going for a huge gamble on this one, all right? My gamble is I'm double stacking Vitality and I'm double stacking Eternal Fire. The reason for this is that I think Vitality could very well make a deep run. I think Cloud9 is a beatable game. Spirit and FaZe for me is a bit of a coin flip. I'll explain that in the Pick'ems video. And then Eternal Fire for me looked like one of the best teams in terms of how fluid and adaptive they were. And a lot of it's down to Major. I think he's a steal for 182,000. I think that's an absurdly low amount. I was expecting him to be closer to 190k, if not 195,000 after his performance, especially in that VP game, if nothing else. Xantares has been great as well, just consistently chugging along and doing a great job for Eternal Fire. And then obviously ZywOo, I've gone for him alongside Mezzy. I could have gone for Apex, who's also a decent shout, and also he's a bit cheaper, 193k, but I couldn't really upgrade either of these players to a point where I felt like it was worth it. So I'm going to stick with this team, and I feel like it's either going to sink or swim, really. Like, I'm either going to get very little points slash no points at all, or I'm going to be in an outrageous position where I'm going to catch up with people big time, and that's exactly what the point of this is. ZywOo was a bit cheaper than usual, and I think it's because he had an underwhelming performance in the elimination stage, but he's been sick. He's actually been sick. He's been coughing. He's been sneezing. From what I understand, he's got the flu. And I'm hoping in the next 3 or 4 days he can rest up, he can recuperate, and we see sort of ZywOo at his best. And obviously, also, after being sick, if he starts to feel 100% again, he might even get a bit of a buff from that, feeling good in front of a crowd, living the dream. You know, I'm kind of playing into this a little bit, but Vitality are more than capable of making a deep run at this major, even though they're in the same bracket as Spirit and FaZe. I do believe that that's the case. So I think you sometimes have to take a bit of a gamble, you know, and it has to be measured, and it has to make sense. You have to have a gut feeling about it, and I do here. I think it's one of the best times for me to actually make a gamble, because I bet most people are going for Spirit. I bet most people are going to go for Mouse, and so I want to do something a little bit different. Very rarely do this. I normally play it safe. Not today. So we're going to buy this team. I'm going to whack Noob on to Hooksy, who is pretty much always going to be bottom of the scoreboard if things are going right. Obviously, we'll get Maynop onto Zaiwu. Zantares, this is where it gets a little bit more difficult. I actually want to give Major probably the supportive role, although Mezzi is right up there at 25.5% as well. So maybe I will actually give Mezzi the supportive role. We'll give Mezzi the supportive role. I'm pressing the wrong things, aren't I? I'm having a nightmare here. So we'll give Mezzi support. Zantares could be fantastic on both the T or CT side, but he also gets a lot of entry rounds. So I might go for an entry on him or a T side. Both are looking pretty interesting for me. I think I might go for eco-friendly on Major. He gets a lot of SMG kills. He's typically going to have MAC 10s, MP9s, and all that stuff. And obviously, Noob's already taken. For Hooksy. Ooh, who do I want to go for here? I might go for T side then. I might go for T rating because 17.2 is very high amounts of entry frags. No, I'll go for entry fragger. We'll go for the entry fragger because that's an outrageously high number. Anything sort of like 15 to 20% and it's catching your eye. That's actually very, very decent amounts of stats. So I'm pretty happy with that overall. I'm banking hard. I'm hard on the Vitality Copium. They're going to play the very first game of the major in the playoffs against Vitality. And then obviously the Spirit Phase game is after that. And then the day after, you have Eternal Fire, Na'Vi, Mouse, and G2. So after the first day, I'm going to know like pretty well if my plan has come together. Because if Vitality beat Cloud9 and FaZe beat Spirit, I'm laughing at that point. I'm in a very, very good place. If they don't, then hey, listen, I went for the free hit. I went for the gamble and it didn't pay off for me. Sad times. Right, anyway, I'll see you in the Pick'ems video. Thank you very much for watching and good luck in the Fantasy League.